All right, so what I'm going to do today is talk about the project. And this first one that we're going to do together is the project lesson. This is not the actual project. So I want you guys, I gave it to you either yesterday or the day before. Find the project lesson. This is the one on the injury lawyer. Find that. And this graph paper that I've labeled the axes on. That's what you're going to need to do the project lesson. The other papers I gave you are for you to do the actual project. Okay, so on this one, an injury lawyer charges according to the following. So for the first hour or part of an hour, you pay $50. Then the next 9 hours, you pay $150 per hour. And after that, I should say they charge $125 per hour. Right? And then he has a partner that charges differently. So his partner charges this way: $500 for any time up to and including the first 10 hours. And then $200 an hour for anything over the first 10 hours. So we're going to complete this chart that shows how much would be paid out to each lawyer. So if you go to this lawyer for half an hour, the lawyer number one, you pay him $50. All right. If you go to this lawyer for 1 hour, you also pay him $50. If you go for 2 hours, you pay him $50 for the first hour and then $150 for the second hour, which is going to be a total of $200. All right. And then from here, it's going to go up $150 for each hour. So for 3 hours, it would be $350. All right. So then for 6 hours, there's a 3-hour span between 3 and 6. So that's going to add $450 to $350, which is going to be $800. All right. Then there's a 4-hour span between 6 hours and 10 hours. So I would add 600 to this 800. So that would be 1400. All right. And you guys try to do those next 3 on your own. Oh, wait. Sorry, just kidding. So that takes care of the 9 hours after the first hour. So this is the 9 hours after the first hour. All right, and then after that, they're only charging $125 per hour. So if you need past 10 hours, you get a little bit of a discount. So for the 11th hour, we would add $125 to that 10. All right, and then we would add $125 for the 12th hour. All right, and then there's a 3-hour span between 12 and 15. So we would add $375 for that span. Okay. All right, and then lawyer 2 is completely different. So $500 for any time up to and including the first 10 hours. So if you go to the second lawyer and you only need him for half an hour, you pay him $500. All right, for 1 hour, it's $500. So all the way till we get through 10 hours, we pay this lawyer $500. Right? And then after that, there's an additional $200 an hour. So for the 11th hour, we would add $200. the 12th hour, we would add 200. And then there's a 3-hour span between 12 and 15. So we would add 600 for that span. All right. Now for number 3, this is probably going to be one of the most challenging parts of your project, is writing a piecewise function that describes the amount of money that's paid out to each lawyer. All right, so I'm going to call lawyer 1 f of x. And because there's 3 different parts to how you pay them, this piecewise function is going to have 3 pieces. All right, so for that first piece, it's a flat rate of $50. So it's going to equal just straight out 50. And then you have to describe what parts of the domain uses that piece. And so we would start with 0 hours, but we're not going to include 0, because if you're there 0 hours, you're not really there. But then it's the first hour part of hour, so up through 1 hour. So we do the or equal to on the 1, because the 1 hour is included in it. All right, so then for the next 9 hours, we're going to pay this lawyer $150 per hour. Now, we've already paid this lawyer $50. And to that, we're going to add $150 per hour. Now, this is where it gets a little tricky, because we've already paid him for 1 hour. I don't want to pay him for that hour again, so the x has that 1 subtracted from it. All right, and then we use this for 1 is less than x is less than or equal to 10. So that's the next 9 hours after the first hour. All right, and then for the last piece. So you can look at the table to see how much we've already paid this lawyer at 10 hours. We've already paid this lawyer $1,400. All right, and then we're going to do an additional $125 per hour. So again, we're going to have x minus something. So I want you guys to think about what should be in those parentheses. Right, so because we've already paid this lawyer for 10 hours, we don't want to double pay them for 10 hours. So each hour after that would be represented by x minus 10. All right, and then that's just going to be for all the hours greater than 10. Okay, so that definitely gets a little tricky. Okay, so we'll do the same thing for lawyer 2. We're going to call him G. He is only going to have 2 pieces for his piecewise function, because there's 2 different things going on with the way he pays, or the way people pay him, or the way he charges. So that flat rate of 500 is just going to be straight out 500 from 0. And then because it says including 10, we're going to do the or equal to on the 10. Okay, so I want you guys to take a second on your own and think about what the second piece is going to be. It's going to be similar to what we had done up here. All right, So we've already paid this lawyer $500, so that's going to be added to now how much we pay him per hour, which is $200. And then in the parentheses, it's going to be X minus, okay? And then you have to think about how many hours you've already paid him for, and it is the 10 hours. And that's going to be for all the X's greater than 10. All right. Okay. This 4 part is the most time consuming part, and it's so important that you are neat and that your lines are straight. So if you do it once and it's all over the place, then you just grab another piece of graph paper and try it again, because this needs to be extremely accurate. All right, so I've already got your graph paper ready to save on time. And it may take you on your problems, because it's a different problem, a while to figure out exactly the scale that's going to work so it will all fit on the graph paper. So we're going to use the graph to determine the final answer, which is when the lawyer is cheaper to hire. So you can tell by looking at the table that sometimes lawyer 1 is cheaper and sometimes lawyer 2 is cheaper, and then there's a change. But I'm telling you that change happens twice. So when we're doing these graphs, we need to continue the graphs until we see where they cross twice. And if you stop too soon, you're not going to be able to answer the question. Okay. So for our first lawyer, we'll call him lawyer 1, the f of x graph. So I have my amounts going up by hundreds. So between 0 and 1, that graph is at 50. Now, 0 does not make sense. So I do have an open circle at 0 until we get to 1. Right, from there, the graph is actually going to start going up by 150 each time. So there's 50, there's 150, and there's my next point. So that's what you need to do each time. So go up 1 and a half, and 1. All right, and we're going to do that all the way to 10. So go up 1 and a half, and 1, 1 and a half, and 1. Double check your work at 10. At 10, I should, according to my table, at 10, I should be at 1400, and I am, so that's good. All right. After that, then you start going up by $125. So that's 1 1/4. This is going to be a little bit more difficult. So 1 1/4. Okay, so 1 would go to this quarter and up another quarter, be at a half. 1 would be at a half, up another quarter would be at 3/4. 1/4 and 1, 1 1/4. So go up 1 will be at a quarter and then at a half. We want to go for a long time because remember we have to find where these cross twice. So up to a half and then another quarter is at 3/4. Up a quarter and 1, 1 1/4. All right, so up 1 would be at a quarter, another quarter would be at a half. Up 1 would be at a half, another quarter would be at 3/4. Up 1/4 and 1. Okay, I'm going to go a few more. 1 1/4. 1 1/4. I think I'm up to the top. All right, you're probably going to want to use a ruler of some sort to make these very, very straight. Because if I look at your graph and it's kind of all over the place, I'm going to know that if you have the right answers, that you just got them from somewhere else. So from 1 to 10 should be a straight line. All right. And then from 10 to the end should be a straight line. And they're slightly different, because you got a discount after 10 hours. Be really careful. Oh, I got a sponge. That'll be okay. And you might double check yourself, like at 15, I should be at 20, 25, and just kind of make sure that you are, and we're good. So use that table for sure, and use the slope. Okay, so that's lawyer 1. I'm going to label him. You can use different colors whenever you are doing it on your own if you want to. All right, then for lawyer 2, his graph is going to be a little easier to do. So we have 500. That's a horizontal line at 500 from 0 until 10. Now remember, 0 doesn't really make sense, so we do an open circle at 0. All right. And then after that, the slope is 200. We're going up by 200. So I want to go up by 200 and do my line until I cross the other lawyer's line. So going up by 200 is just 2 up, 1 over. All right, there it is. So once you find it, make it real big and fat. So that is lawyer 2. I spelled lawyer. So when you guys are doing this on your own, and you do something like that, try to make it neat and white it out. Don't just write over it. Because neatness is important. It's not going to be part of your grade. It's how neat you are. So on this graph, what I'm looking for when you do it on your own is that you label the axes with words, so what they represent, and then you label them with numbers. Same thing here. Words with what they represent. I punched a hole through it, but that says dollars. And that you label it with numbers. I would recommend you give a title to your to your graph. And then I'm going to look to make sure that your graph is straight and neat, and it crosses at 2 places. All right, so let's go back to the sheet. So you'll staple your graph to your assignment. And then we're going to give the domain of lawyer 1. So the domain, it represents all the x values where the function is defined. So we start at 0 hours. We don't include 0 because that doesn't make sense. And then the hours just get bigger and bigger. So x would be greater than 0 for your domain. The range, we're talking about y's. So we start at the bottom. The very lowest y value that you could have for lawyer 1 is $50. So y be greater than or equal to $50. And then a continuous graph is a graph that is connected in every way. So this graph is continuous, so we would say yes. All right, the domain of lawyer 2 should be the same. The range is definitely different. So the lowest amount that you would pay this lawyer is $500. So y should be greater than or equal to 500. And this graph is continuous because it is all connected. Okay, and then 5 and 6 are the whole reason why we did this graph and this project, to determine when it's cheaper to hire which lawyer. All right, so lawyer 1. Lawyer 1 graph is below lawyer 2 in this section right here. So between 0 and 4 hours. And then they cross again at 22 hours. And then from 22 hours on, lawyer 1 is going to fall below lawyer 2 again. So they're straight lines. They're not going to cross a third time. So that should be good. All right. So you would write this out in words specifically. You don't just write some random numbers. You need to explain it. So I would want you guys to write something like lawyer 1 is cheaper if you need his services between 0 and 4 hours or more than 22 hours. All right, so that's why it's important you find where the graphs cross twice. Okay, and then for lawyer 2 is graphed underneath lawyer 1 between 4 and 22 hours. So you would say that lawyer 2 is cheaper if you need between 4 and 22 hours of service. Okay, so that is just the project lesson to help you do your real project. And so the other sheets I gave you were your real project and a piece of graph paper. So I'll keep graph paper out in the classroom. So if you mess up, you don't have your graph paper, you can get some more.